Good evening, I'm Jeff Lyons. This is the 14 First Alert Weather Show at 9 p.m. We do this every night at 9 to give you a full-blown weather forecast here. Only weather, a little science, and of course some pet pictures, and best of all, your comments, questions that I'm following on the 14 News Facebook page. So if you have something you'd like to talk about or report, or just an observation, you can put that in there, and I'll be sure and check those here as we get into the show tonight. We have another cold night on the way, and as you know, we've been on alert for some kind of winter disruption pretty much since last week. I think our alert day started Friday, and then of course through the weekend, and we're going to carry it all the way through to Saturday, with the reason being we're expecting wind chills to once again sink down to about 15 degrees below zero here by the end of the week. We have another surge of Arctic air moving in, and our biggest hazard will be frostbite exposure and so forth. I'm thinking mainly kids out there. I see a lot of sledders. Everybody's enjoying the winter weather, but you need to be careful and kind of take breaks and get inside and warm up if you can. The cold weather alerts have pulled way back. We still have a cold weather advisory for central Illinois and Indiana. It droops down here and picks up Du Bois and Perry counties. Our extreme cold warning cleared earlier this morning, but we might see another one at the end of the week, as we are expecting that wind chill value to get down to minus 15 again. That's considered the danger zone. Anything lower than minus 10, you could see pretty rapid onset of frostbite. Our record low temperatures are much below what we're forecasting. This is just to kind of give you some perspective. It could be a lot colder out there than what we're experiencing here this week. However, this is one of the more prolonged cold outbreaks that we've had in the last several years. The temperatures for tomorrow and Thursday will climb back into the mid-20s, which felt mild out there today. I don't know about you, but I was like, well, do I really need a coat? You know, and when you're coming down the other way, when it's been like 60 and we get down into the mid-20s, you think you're going to freeze to death. So your body does acclimate at some point. However, we've kind of made it tough here with these ups and downs. I think we will get to zero or maybe a degree below tomorrow morning. You know, our low today, as I'm going to show you here in a minute, was 7 at midnight. But we were at 0 at 10 o'clock. So we like bumped down, and then the winds had shifted to the south, and that warm air advection warmed us back up overnight. But we will take another trip down into the low single digits or near 0 on Saturday before we begin a steady climb there toward freezing and above next week. That means our count now for consecutive days below freezing stands at 5 as of today. And we're looking at maybe 11 days. It will depend on when we break over 32 next week, but we'll be in the category here of one of the longer stretches of sub-freezing days. The longest was back in 2001, 18 days below 32. Hour by hour, we have clouds returning overnight, and we will have more clouds than sun during the day tomorrow, and same thing for Thursday as that next system moves in. It's a clipper, could kick up a few flurries. We're not looking at any accumulating or disruptive snow out there. Our current temperatures now 18 degrees at Evansville, Henderson already down to 14, Madisonville at 23, and we'll just buzz right up Highway 41 here. I guess you'd have to make a turn on State Road 64 and then 15 there, but 12 in Mount Carmel, 16 now at Fairfield and Huntingburg there in Du Bois County, southern Du Bois County, at 16. The feels-like temperatures have not gotten as cold as they were last night. The winds have backed off a little bit, so that has helped in some ways. We have clear skies. As I walked in here a little while ago, I could see the stars and the moon, so we are clear, which should allow for pretty efficient cooling. Our dew point's at 8. And if we continue to fall, we may actually see some fog develop as we sink below 0 overnight. Our high today, a big turnabout from yesterday. We got up to 27 versus 9 for the high yesterday, which was nearly a record low high. The record was 7 degrees set back in 1978, I believe, and it has been dry, of course, since our weekend snow. Seasonal total here at 14.6 inches. That, I would say, is for around here, that's a bad winter, snowy one anyway. Our precip for the month and, of course, for the year at 2 3/4 inches. So we're just a little off on that, a little dry, and our average temperature continues to lose ground. We're about 1.5 degrees below the normal. This will go in the book as the 5th snowiest January since snow records began in 1948 with 12.5 inches of snow. Some of you have said, well, what about December? You know, we had 22.3. That was December. We're just looking at the month of January here. We'll look at seasonal snowfall later, but you know, unless we get pummeled again here a couple times in February and March, this will kind of be a mid-pack kind of winter snowfall-wise. 77, 78, 79 was like the trifecta for snow in the tri-state, and cold weather too. 78 was the coldest January on record. I think the average temperature was like 19.1. We're sitting probably at the end of this month around 25.2 or 3, so considerably warmer than the worst that we've had out there. It's a quiet national map tonight. High pressure will continue to sink in out of the plains, and as it gets into the Tennessee Valley, it will bring clouds with us, which is kind of counterintuitive. Normally you think of high pressures bringing clear skies, but there are occasions, like in the next couple of days, we call it a dirty high, where you have moisture trapped, and so you get cloud cover even though you have high pressure. That will move out, and then we have our next cold front that will deliver that Arctic blast for the weekend. There's a potential for a big coastal storm or nor'easter. We've been watching this on the models the last couple of days. I was going to highlight that again here this evening and see if our updated GFS model has done anything differently. I don't believe it has. In one scenario, I'm going to show you 2 models, of course, like we do with any of these longer range forecasts just for comparison. But Saturday into Sunday, at least as of today, the GFS forecasting a deepening low out here off of South Carolina and North Carolina that could throw some snow back inland here. That may disrupt the NASCAR race out there Sunday. And then we get into Saturday night, early Sunday, and that storm has intensified here at the mouth of the Chesapeake Bay, at least by the forecast here on the GFS. Now, you know, if it moves farther out to sea or comes farther inland, it'll have different impacts there, just like when we get snow here in the tri-state. Speaking of the tri-state, some of the earlier models showed some snow bands wrapping around and maybe reaching the tri-state. That's kind of dampened out now in the most recent look. By late Sunday night, early Monday, that nor'easter would be up here off of Cape Cod is right there. So again, this is just the forecast data, but that's a pretty impressive looking storm if it comes together. And like any other long-range forecast, you know, we're going to have to take it day by day. I'm sure there's some hype out there on the internet about that system, but this is the model data that we have right now. As far as the tri-state is concerned, looks like our next round of rainfall could arrive by Wednesday. Again, we're looking way out here on the GFS. What would that be, 8 days out? I get a little sketchy about, you know, putting much weight in it. But I think the interesting trend here has been that this rain has shown up the last 3 days on this time frame here on the GFS. So that gives me at least a little confidence we should see some precip. It may turn out to be a mixed event with snow up to the north, far away from the tri-state, and rain to the south, and then it moves on out as colder air wraps in behind. Okay, that was the GFS. Let me show you something kind of wild. This is the European model. Now again, looking at the same time frame, roughly the same resolution as the other model, and we get to Wednesday, Thursday, not much happening here. And then watch down here. This is where the GFS was developing that storm. And you see it too, the European developing that, bringing snow up, but it's placed a little farther east, which might spare places like Charlotte and Greenville would be right in there. And then you get on out into Tennessee and that, out of the snow band, at least by the European. This is Saturday night going into Sunday, and notice the European pulls that storm much farther east, which means the impact theoretically would be less. But then the interesting note here is the European wants to bring a little snow in to the tri-state early Monday. And then we get into the middle of the week. Remember how we had a mixed event, rain to the south, snow to the north, and it wants to pull the rain a little farther south and put the tri-state in snow. So again, this is so many days out. The only reason I'm showing this to you tonight is just to make you aware that that's what we're watching, but it is way too soon to really pinpoint, okay, it's going to rain, it's going to snow, and here's where it's going to happen. But a trend that we're continuing to watch here. So a nor'easter potentially along the east coast, and either rain or rain-snow toward the middle of next week here in the tri-state. Okay, so now I'll be happy to answer any questions on that here in just a few minutes. But for now, we're still looking maybe at a low of around 1 below 0. If we do dip down, that's going to be a little tough. I showed you that dew point at 8. Typically, that's kind of the floor for how far you'll cool. If we do get a little wind in there to pull down some cooler air, we could sink on down. But I think that low temperature might be a little too low. I left it in for now just for consistency, but I'm going to reevaluate here before 14 News at 10. A consistency with Arden and with Byron's forecast earlier today. 23 degrees tomorrow then, with increasing clouds as we showed you there on the hour-by-hour forecast. Our alert days up through Saturday for the extreme cold, and then next week we kind of get into a little more tolerable setup there with temperatures near or maybe even above freezing. We're still hanging on to below average temperatures through the 10th of February next week, and drier than normal too. Now, that doesn't mean we won't have any snow, or rain, it just means it'll be a little bit drier. All right, this pet pick, this is, I've never seen this before. I've seen one before, but not as a pet. So Shanna Johnson had, her sheep, had a baby, two actually. I'll show you the twin here in just a minute. This is Cuddles, a sheep, which was born a couple days ago, I believe. I should have looked at the timestamp, but anyway, a newborn. And because of the cold weather, Shanna brought in Cuddles and also the twin here, the black one, the black sheep, into the house there to enjoy the fire and stay warm. How about that? Hey, and they've got diapers on too. Well, you couldn't see that earlier, but the other picture, the lamb there had a diaper on. All right, good stuff. Let's see what we have here from you guys. All right, and I'm looking at your questions and comments now. Let's see, can I explain why? Now, not sure what we have. A lot of you are ready for warmer weather. Okay, not sure what I'm looking at here. We're going to have another. Merv Fisher says, are we going to have another polar vortex interruption in February? Well, that's a good question. I can't answer it. If you're talking about early February, it doesn't look like it since our temperatures are going up. I guess you're referring to maybe toward the end of February. Longer range forecasting is showing yet more cold air. Whether it'll be a full-blown polar vortex thing, I can't really say at this point. I really, just focus on that next 7 days because we have the best confidence in the short range. I know we've done the fall-winter special and we try to predict, but the fact of the matter is it's very difficult out, beyond 7-10 days to really nail a forecast. We can look at general trends. The National Climate Prediction Center puts out those, long lead forecast maps that are 2 and 3 months, seasonal and so forth. And those will sometimes fluctuate a little bit as well. So we'll just have to kind of wait and see on the old polar vortex. Let me click on can I explain why? Oh, okay. Can I explain why winter storm warning doesn't activate the weather radio? It should activate a weather radio. Then Justin Turnage says winter storm warnings issued 24/3 they don't always tone. And then there's the really. Okay, I kind of get the thread here now. Yeah, and my experience has been they don't always activate the tone for a winter storm warning. I've certainly heard it both ways. I can't answer why one is one way and one is the other. Typically, with the National Weather Service. It's a standard operating procedure. My only guess would be like if it was in the middle of the night, perhaps, like a lot of times a winter storm watch will be upgraded to a winter storm warning when that morning crew comes in and has the latest model data. And typically they're looking at things at, 2 in the morning up to about 6. So, to elevate a warning at 3 in the morning and send out, all the alerts, tones on the weather radio would cause alert complacency, right? Not crying wolf, but you kind of hear this thing, you're like, and you would turn it off. So that is a theory, and only that, in my opinion. I feel like long fuse warnings, and by that I mean like like a winter storm watch, winter storm warning, things that go on more than 24 hours or whatever, don't really need the alert tone to be activated. Typically, when I hear that tone, I'm thinking short fuse warnings, which would be a tornado warning, severe thunderstorm warning, flash flood warning, severe weather, right? Even in an ice storm, typically the onset is over many hours, and so maybe that's the reasoning. And maybe we just didn't remember whether they did one way or one the other. I'm kind of lame tonight, aren't I? But I'm telling you the truth here. I mean, if it were mine to choose, I would reserve the tone alert for tornado, severe thunderstorm, and flash flood warnings only. Civil emergency warnings, sometimes they have those. Even child abduction alerts, which they send over the weather radio. I don't think they should use the weather radio for that, but again, this is my opinion. I understand, if you have a child who's been kidnapped, you want it to go out over all channels, but oftentimes it's not relevant, to the area that you're in. So we're getting way in the weeds here on this, but anyway, just so you kind of know where I'm coming from, I feel like we want to keep the alerts reserved for truly life-threatening situations. Let's see, James Allen Garrison, are we getting another cold hit this weekend? It shows maybe ice Wednesday next week. We are getting the cold hit this weekend. Next week, as I showed you there on both the GFS and European, something will happen around Wednesday, midweek. Remember, when we go out more than 4 or 5 days, it's highly variable. The GFS has been showing rain for the last 3 days here over us midweek, around Wednesday to Thursday. The European was showing a little bit of snow in there, but it's too soon to say. I will point out that the European, at least on this last winter storm that we had over the weekend, was signaling a winter event about a week out. It wasn't completely, fleshed out, but we were in the area that then ultimately got the snow. And of course, there's no way to know how much and even timing at this stage. Let's do a little science corner here. I've had many of you ask me or plead with me to beg people to stay off ice. So we talked about this last night, but I'll repeat it. And I did notice ice, or saw the ice on the Ohio River today with my own eyes. I took a walk and could see it down there. And yeah, I mean, nobody's going to be walking on the Ohio River during this cold event. Typically, the ice at this stage in the game, probably a couple inches thick, if that, and it won't support you. So if you step out on the ice, you're going to get wet feet. And, if you really go for it, you could get into the water more than you want. You need 4 inches of ice for safe walking on hockey, that sort of thing, ice skating and ice fishing. 4 inches of ice around here it's not, we get it from time to time, but typically it doesn't last long. We'll get a swing in the temperature where it goes above freezing, and that compromises the quality of the ice. It gets pitted on top, you get water on top, and then that's what makes it dangerous. It starts to basically weaken. And so even at 4 inches, if it's, wet or compromised in any way, you could be in danger of getting on the ice. And then in the northern climes here in the U.S., up in Canada and Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota, places like that, once you get up to about 5 or 6 inches of ice, you can drive snowmobiles, ATVs, four-wheelers, and the like. And then, of course, you need about a foot of ice to safely get a car out there, and even more to drive a big truck. And the big thing about ice is you just don't know how thick it is unless you drill through and measure and do that in several spots. It could be 4 inches here and an inch over there if you've got a spring-fed kind of lake out there. So my advice is don't get on the ice. Just don't do it. One thing we will probably experience next week, once we make a warm-up here from this prolonged period of extreme cold, will be frost quakes. And it sounds like thunder. Your house may jiggle or shake a little bit, just like an earthquake. And what's happening here is that groundwater, soil water, freezes and expands. Remember, ice or water expands when it freezes. And that puts pressure then on the soil and then down to the bedrock below it. And so as that pressure builds, it can then cause the soil to burst up or to make a bang. And the reason we might hear that next week is you'll start to get that temperature differential where it's maybe thawing out a little bit at the surface, but just below we have a hard freeze, and so you'll get that rumble or bang or sound like that. And they are, it's a little unnerving the first time you'll hear it. You'll think we're having an earthquake, but chances are it will be a frostquake. And once all this stuff melts off, we will be dealing with potholes out there. We've had this extreme cold, and once we warm up, there will be the rash of broken water mains, boil water advisories, and potholes. And the same reason applies. Rain gets down into the cracks in the pavement, and then it freezes, or in our case, snow melts, goes down, freezes, and that expanding water puts a crack or maybe a little ding in the pavement. And then as cars drive over it, especially heavily traveled areas, it tears up the pavement and you get potholes. Everybody's favorite thing. And usually they have a pothole blitz in many communities here in the tri-state to fill those in once we start getting into spring weather, which can't come soon enough, right? But we're still a little over 6 weeks away from the start. James Allen Garrison, how thick was the ice when the Ohio froze? Can't remember the date. Yeah, so James, there are 3 dates that I can tell you with certainty that the river froze. 4 dates that I can tell you. 1918, in the winter, of course, January, I think. 1936, the year before the Great Flood of 37. 1977, 1978. And in the earlier 2 years, 1936, 1918, there are pictures, famous pictures of people walking on the ice. If you look carefully, it doesn't look like a skating rink. It's all this jumbled up ice. And in fact, I think in Evansville, in the bend there, we had an ice gorge or ice jam where the ice blocks off the river, and that can cause flooding. So it didn't have a uniform thickness. It would be more like walking over, rubble, right? And in 77, 78, the ice had a similar characteristic. My dad took me right down on Ohio Street there by the Singing Bridge, the 2 bridges down there. And we didn't walk on it, of course, but it's impossible to say. I'm guessing it was at least 4 or 5 inches thick, but I'm guessing here. And I did not see anybody walking on it then. Some of that might be, local lore and legend. And people might have done it too. I did not witness it with my own eyes. So, but when there's a will, there's a way, right? Somebody will do it. Thomas Hubble, that rain will get rid of the snow pretty good then. Yes and no. It takes a while to melt off, and we will probably have fog once we get rain on top of this cold surface, right, the snowpack. AJ's watching from Madisonville. Oh, we got Darlene Ezell. She's always in there. You're welcome. Let's see here. Yeah, Murph Fisher later in February for that next polar vortex. I'll have to look at some stuff and hopefully answer that on our next stream. I think I answered all your questions here. I will check one more. I think I got it. Okay. I appreciate you watching the First Alert Weather Show here at 9. I will see you over on the TV side on 14 News at 10. Byron Douglas will be back here in the morning with a stream at 8:30 just after 14 News Sunrise. And then, of course, Arden Gregory's in here Actually, she's on the midday show, and Michael Fecca will be here during the afternoon. Stay safe. Try to stay warm. It's tough. I'll see you on 14 News at 10 o'clock.